What? Say what now? I don't care, it's my list. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of my Pick of My Pops series, where I'm going to be taking a look at my favourite bands and artists and just going through my top songs by those. This episode, it's Oasis. Now, Oasis, in some ways, despite how much of a massive Beatles fan I am, there are certain ways in which Oasis have played a bigger part in my life. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I'm a massive Oasis fan. I wouldn't say they are my favourite band ahead of the Beatles, but they are a band that has meant an awful lot to me over the years. So I have got my top 25 favourite Oasis songs that I'm going to count down with you now. And starting at number 25, from the What's the Story Morning Glory vinyl version, it's Bonehead's Bank Holiday. Now, this isn't... I would say there's more than 25 better songs than this, but this is one of my favourites because it just sort of feels like the nearest thing to sort of hanging around with the band, being in the studio with them, seeing what they're like as people rather than them just as musicians. It's a fun song, it's a daft song. I especially like the bits at the end where they're just sort of, they're talking at the end and going, you know, she said her name was Dot, she didn't have to talk a lot. And it just feels like you're hanging around with the band and you're going to go for a beer with them. So for that reason, I've put it as one of my favourites at number 25. At number 24, this may seem insanely low in my chart to some people. I could have left it out altogether, but then I thought I can't really. At number 24, it's Wonderwall. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love Wonderwall. It's a classic song from the 90s. It's just become the first song from the 90s to be streamed on Spotify 1 billion times, which is incredible. And it's a song that defines that era for the UK, certainly. And but I just think they made so many better songs than Wonderwall, despite how iconic that song is and how great it is. I do think that they did so much better than that, but I couldn't leave it out altogether. I think some people probably would, other people would probably have it as number one, but it's my number 24. Number 23, it's the opening song from the fourth album, Heathen Chemistry. It's the Hindu Times, and it was a big single in the UK as well. It's great harmonies between Liam and Noel, and Liam singing it with his great rock voice that he's got. And it was one of the, around that sort of time, we've just sort of slipped into what you think of as like the second half of the Oasis career. It was one of the big sort of lead-off songs from that era of them, and it's one that I've always really loved. It does rock very well. Number 22, from the final Oasis album, Dig Out Your Soul, I've gone for the opening single from that, which was The Shock of the Lightning. So again, it was Liam on top for me. He was really giving it some, and it was, for me, I think it's my favourite song on this album. It's not my favourite Oasis album by any means. In fact, I think it's probably my least favourite Oasis album overall, but I think The Shock of the Lightning was keeping up their tradition of always coming out with a great first single from an album, and that was no exception, Shock of the Lightning. At number 21, this is the Stand By Me single, but it's not Stand By Me. It's actually the last track on here, Going Nowhere, which I think it often gets overlooked as an Oasis song, and it probably does by me a little bit as well. It doesn't get played as much as it really should do, and every time it comes on, I just think, wow, what a great song. Why do I not play this more often than I do? It's got some sort of great, it's like a sort of a Hammond-style keyboard that's in it, and it's just got a fantastic chorus that just sort of grabs you in and makes you realise that it's a lot better song than the reputation that it gets. But yeah, so it's from the Stand By Me single, Going Nowhere, sung by Noel. Number 20, it's our first visit to Definitely Maybe, the debut album, and it's track 11, Married with Children. So it's just that sort of quiet acoustic song that's at the end of the album, and I've always really loved this song, and I had a theory about this song for years, and I'm still not entirely sure that I'm not right with it. It could be complete nonsense, but I always felt that this was, obviously it's written by Noel, and I felt that the lyrics were about Liam. just sort of saying how, sort of slagging off his music choices and saying how annoying he is. But then the song is obviously Liam singing it, and it's sort of made to sound as though it's about their girlfriend. But it feels to me always like a bit of a joke that Noel has written this song about Liam, slagging Liam off, and then getting Liam to sing it. It probably isn't. My theory is probably wrong, but that's how I always thought of it for years. But it's worth just have a listen and just have a listen with that viewpoint. See what you think. Let me know in the comments if you agree or not. Like I say, it could be total nonsense, but that's what I always thought about the song. But it's a great song, Married with Children. That's at number 20. And at number 19, let me get the album. From What's the Story, Morning Glory. It was the opening single from this album, Some Might Say. Came out a few months before the album, so it was like the launch of the next phase of Oasis. We'd had Definitely Maybe and all those singles, and then Whatever came out as a sort of a mid album single, but then this was kind of the launch to the new album. Some might say it's just a great rock song. It's so catchy. It's got a great chorus to it, and I look on it as just such an exciting time for music in this country, not just because of what Oasis were doing, but what was building at the time with Britpop and that whole culture around it, which I absolutely loved. I know it's easy to criticise, but I just think there were great times. They really were. And Some Might Say was right in the thick of it, and it was a brilliant #1 single for the band. Number 18, we're sticking with the same album, and it's Morning Glory. It's the song Morning Glory. An absolutely brilliant performance by Liam. He absolutely rocks this. There's some great electric guitar in this that really sort of cuts through, and it's just got such an energy to it. Again, I think it probably gets overlooked a little bit. It's not one of the most obvious songs that gets thought about when you think of Oasis, but I think it should be, because it's just an absolutely superb performance. So that's Morning Glory from the album What's the Story, Morning Glory. And we're sticking with this album for the next one, number 17. She's Electric. Now, it's a little bit Oasis by numbers, but I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic song that, for me, sort of kind of sums up the position that Oasis had in the UK at that time in the mid-90s, which was unlike anything I've ever seen before. Now, She's Electric wasn't a single. It was an album track, but it was all over the radio. You would hear it lots, and there's very, very few bands in history that I've found where their album tracks get such national radio play as what Oasis did. So obviously the Beatles have had it, Queen to a certain extent, a little bit with ABBA, but very limited. Oasis certainly were one of those bands where their album tracks could get all over the radio, and She's Electric was a prime example of that. And again, just a great fun song, some funny lyrics, and it's one of the biggest examples of Oasis being criticised for sounding like the Beatles. And of course it's because of that ending that's very, very similar to the end of With a Little Help from My Friends. But brilliant song, She's Electric. Number 16. We're back to Heathen Chemistry and the song Little by Little, sung by Noel. So I think it's one of those songs that, you know, it wouldn't be out of place on one of Noel's sort of first two solo albums. It's very much a Noel kind of song, but it's really him. I think he grew into his voice a lot. As time went on in Oasis, his voice got stronger and stronger, and this was one of those examples of one that he was able to belt out that he probably wouldn't have done very early in Oasis's career, where very early on he tended to be sort of maybe more like a quiet B-side or something. This was him really finding his voice, well, which he already had done a few times before this, but this was one of those examples of him really sort of showing himself what a really good singer he is, and a real good song as well, Little by Little. At number 15, we're back to What's the Story, Morning Glory, and it's Cast No Shadow. So one of the great early Oasis sort of more gentler songs. There's nothing like this on Definitely Maybe at all, but it was a song that was really sort of suited this particular album. It showed off their melodic qualities, and it showed that they were able to do different kinds of songs to what we'd maybe known them for before. But it's just an absolutely beautiful song. Again, there's some great harmonies between Noel and Liam, something that they don't always get praised for their harmonies, but when they did do good harmonies, as they did in parts of that song, it was sort of classic brotherly harmonies as we've seen throughout the rock era. But gorgeous song, that's Cast No Shadow. At number 14, we're back to Definitely Maybe, and I've gone for Columbia. Now, not one of the obvious singles, for example, on here, but it's a much heavier song. It's got heavier guitar riffs. It's not got the sort of big, obvious anthemic chorus, for example, but it just showed that Oasis wanted to rock. They didn't just want to do nice melodic pop songs but with a distorted guitar. They wanted to do heavier rock songs as well, and Columbia is a great example of that, and for me sort of one of the highlights of the kind of middle of the album. Definitely Maybe, brilliant song. At number 13, it's a song that Oasis released 2 versions of, and this is the second version that appeared on the Help! War Child Charity album in September 1995, and it's their second version of Fade Away. So it had originally been a B-side on one of their earlier singles, and it was done as a very much a sort of a normal Oasis style, guitars up to 11 kind of song. But this, they really toned it down. They brought out the melody of the song. They made a much more laid back version. Johnny Depp plays on this song, and it's just, again, it's one of those examples of early Oasis of showing that they weren't going to be doing just what's on Definitely Maybe. As great as it was, they were going to go and do different types of music, and it's just a gorgeous song. My favourite version of Fade Away. At number 12, I've already mentioned that Oasis had a great tradition for opening singles from albums, and here's another one. Their opening single from Don't Believe the Truth, which was Lila. So another big single in the UK. Liam on absolutely top form again, absolutely blasting this song. It's a song that doesn't let up. It comes in with energy, and it carries that energy right throughout the song. And if you're looking at that sort of mid to late period Oasis, then that's absolutely one of my favourite songs from that period, Lila. Number 11. So I think a lot of people would put this a lot higher, and it is a magnificent song. It's a classic, undoubtedly. From What's the Story, Morning Glory, Don't Look Back in Anger. Another huge number 1 single for Oasis. Noel's his first sort of really big moment as lead singer on an Oasis song. He'd sung songs before that on B-sides, whatever, but as a big album song and a number 1 single, this was Noel announcing himself. Absolutely fantastic song, and I'm thinking, why am I putting it sort of down at number 11? But you know, I think I can justify it in my list compared to what's still to come. But you know, it took on a big new meaning. Did this song just sort of 3.5 years ago with the Manchester bombing, when it became an anthem for the city, and it sort of really helped the city to come to terms with what had happened, with the way that, you know, it would there would be gatherings in the city centre and people just impromptu would start singing this song and everybody was joining in, and it made sort of people realise just how much this song had endured and become a part of people's lives. It is an absolutely classic song. I love it, but I'm putting it at number 11, Don't Look Back in Anger. At number 10, we're going back to Definitely Maybe. This was the first Oasis song I ever knew, and the reason that I knew it was because it was on a free CD that came with Q magazine. I did see a poll a couple of years ago where it came out as the number 1 Oasis song, and I'm not going to argue with that. Slide Away. An epic song, a massive song, one of the undoubted highlights of this debut album, and you know, again, Liam's on top form. The whole band are on top form. They've made it into something huge that means so much to an awful lot of people. And I do love the song. I've got it at number 10. Number 9. The biggest album release I've ever experienced in my lifetime is when Be Here Now came out in August 1997. It was huge. Never seen anything like it. And the lead-off single, Do You Know What I Mean? Stunning single. The way that it sort of builds up at the start, Liam comes crashing in with a great vocal. There's that great guitar solo towards the end with the wah-wah setting on, and the whole thing's just an epic song. It's full of references to Beatles songs and to things that Oasis love, and it's just an absolute epic. It's a typical Oasis chord structure. I think it's pretty much not far off the Wonderwall chord structure. It's very, very similar, if not the same. But an epic song, the lead-off single to the biggest thing I've witnessed during my lifetime as a musical event, despite the fact that sort of a few weeks later an awful lot of people suddenly realised that this wasn't as good as they maybe thought it was. But it was just exciting times, and Do You Know What I Mean was right at the forefront of that. At number 8, the year is 1994. The world has been gripped by grunge for a couple of years. And then a band from Manchester come along. The debut album comes out. The first song on it just blows open music in this country for the next few years. Rock and Roll Star. What a way to announce yourself. Absolutely superb. You know, this was... Noel said often that a lot of what he did was kind of a reaction to grunge, whereas he felt that there was an attitude with grunge often, not always, of, you know, everything's horrible and I want to kill myself, and Noel comes along with, I want to be a rock and roll star, I want to live forever, for example. It was the complete opposite of what had been happening for 2 or 3 years. Rock and Roll Star is just the perfect way to announce yourself on your opening album. You know, tonight I'm a rock and roll star. Fantastic song, brilliant energy. Liam announcing himself as one of the great rock singers, and absolutely love it. At number 7, it's an epic. It's from What's the Story, Morning Glory. It's the last song, Champagne Supernova. You know, when you play this album, you get towards the back end, you've been hit with Morning Glory. It's absolutely smacked you in the face as a great song. You've then got, you know, it goes into the untitled part, the sort of swamp song thing, and then that ends, and this song just drifts in, nice and gentle, but then it builds, and it builds, and it explodes, and it is an absolute epic. I mean, lyrics like, slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball. What? Say what now? But that's kind of typical Oasis, really. It means nothing and it means everything at the same time. Paul Weller appears on the song. He's playing lead guitar on the song. And when I was at Nebworth in '96 watching Oasis, and John Squire joined them on stage to play that song, and that was a great moment as well. But Liam's on absolutely fantastic form. The whole band are. And it's a song that will be remembered for decades. Noel famously called his house in London at the time Supernova Heights after this song. Just absolute genius. At number 6, here is the Some Might Say single. We've already talked about Some Might Say, but there's a little B-side tucked away on here. Track 3, Acquiesce. One of the great B-sides of all time, I would say. I think of it as a duet. I don't think that's unfair. This is a Noel and Liam duet. Liam handling the verses and then over to Noel for the choruses. And it's just an absolutely majestic song. It's those two as brothers saying about how much they need each other. You know, they could still do with each other. Now, they're doing all right, but wouldn't it be great if they start doing stuff together again like they used to do? It would be brilliant. Acquiesce is the archetypal Noel and Liam song together, showing how great they can be when they combine at the best. Oasis were just chucking stuff like that on as B-sides on a regular basis. It was ridiculous. We've still got a couple more to come that were just B-sides. One of the great B-side bands in history, I would say. But that's my number 6, Acquiesce. Into the top 5 now. Now, this song, at various points, I've often said, this is my number 1 Oasis song of all time. Well, I'm actually putting it at number 5 at the moment. Again, carrying on that tradition of brilliant opening lead singles, It's the lead single from Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. It's Go Let It Out. I absolutely adore this song. And like I say, at various points, I have said that that's my number one Oasis song. It absolutely rocks. It's got some good imagery in the lyrics. Getting back to that, which they did on certain things that I've mentioned already. But I just think it kicks butt. There's some great bass riffs on it, which doesn't sound great when I do it, but it sounds great on the record. And it just non-stop throughout, never lets go. Absolutely one of my favourite Oasis songs. Probably higher up in my list than it might be for most, but I don't care, it's my list. At number 4, not for the first time, we're talking about an Oasis single with a cheeky little B-side tucked away. So this is the Whatever single, it bridged the gap between Definitely Maybe and What's the Story Morning Glory. And again, track 3, Half the World Away. Sung by Noel. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful song. Famously used as the theme tune for The Royal Family. What a great TV show that was, and it got a great theme tune to go with it as well. Noel got into a bit of songwriting, credit difficulties with this song, because it sounds very much like what song is it? It's This Guy's in Love with You, written by Burt Bacharach. Some great similarities between the two, but it's a beautiful song. Again, the tucking away absolute classics as B-sides. Absolutely ridiculous. The quality that Noel Gallagher was writing that wasn't even making it onto albums is crazy. But that is my number 4. So at number 3, surely Noel couldn't write an even better song and tuck it away as a B-side, could he? Oh yes, he could. This is the Wonderwall single from 1995, and it's not track 3 this time, it's track 4, The Master Plan. Oh my goodness. An absolutely incredible song, and it kind of meant that we got the Master Plan album off the back of this, which was a collection mainly of B-sides that they put out, just because they were so good. I don't really regard the Master Plan as an album as such. It is a collection of B-sides that's separate. I don't class it as part of their album discography like I know some people do. But anyway, the Master Plan song, it is epic. There's elements of it that remind me of Steel and Glass, John Lennon's song from Walls and Bridges. But yeah, another example of the ridiculousness of the quality of the B-sides that Oasis were putting out in the mid-1990s. That is my number 3. At number 2, we're going back to Definitely Maybe. It's a single. It's a huge one. It's Live Forever. This is the CD single. The cover there, for anybody who's not familiar with that is Mendips on Menlove Avenue, the house that John Lennon grew up with his Aunt Mimi. That is that house. But Live Forever, it's an era-defining song. It's, I mentioned a few minutes ago about Noel was often reacting against grunge. This is a prime example of that. Noel singing "I Want to Live Forever" and making it into just absolutely one of the great songs of the era. It's an absolute anthem. There's a lot of gigs that I've been to, not Oasis gigs or Noel gigs or anything, but other bands who've been influenced, where the music that's played before the band comes on is always gives you a real good pointer as to where their heads are at. And Live Forever gets played so often at the gigs that I go to before main bands come on, just because it's an era-defining song and an absolute classic. At number 2. So here we are at number 1. What could it be? I'll give you some clues. It's on the Definitely Maybe album. It's a song that Liam absolutely kills it superbly. He came up with a voice to define a generation on this song, I think. It's a song where Oasis were accused of ripping off Mark Bolan and T-Rex, mainly because of the intro that went something like this. is of course Cigarettes and Alcohol. It's one of my favourite rock songs of all time, and mainly because of what Liam does on it. He was the voice of our generation for so many people, in Britain and further afield as well. But it's a fantastic performance, a fantastic rock song, and it is pretty much since it came out, it's been one of my absolute favourite songs. So that is my number one. There's my top 25 Oasis songs. They're my favourites. You know, they may be different to yours. Let me know what your favourites are. I would love to hear from you. And I will see you again soon, hopefully. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.